Hello and welcome to our Digital Futures Legend series. My name is Neil Leach. I'm one of the co-founders of Digital Futures, and I'll be the host today. The intention behind this particular series is to interview, in a form of fireside chat, some of the most significant figures in architecture, Pritzker Prize winners, leading designers, and so on, and to really ask them to talk more about the inspirations and the motivations and the preoccupations that lie behind their work, and to maybe offer some advice for the current generation of students. Today, I'm absolutely delighted to have as our guest Wolf dPrix. Wolf is somebody who I count among a handful of figures who've been hugely inspirational in my life, alongside people like Zaha Hadid and Tom Main, maybe Enrique Morales, and a few others, but a very select group. And it's a particular privilege for me to be here interviewing Wolf. I'm going to just say a few brief words by way of, and show some videos by way of introduction to give you, those of you not so familiar with his work, an overview of the work, and in particular, I'm interested in some of the early experimental work that was going on. So just to say a few brief words about Wolf. Wolf was born in 1942 in Vienna, Austria, and studied architecture at the Vienna University of Technology, the Architectural Association in London, as well as Southern California Institute of Technology, SCI-Arc, in Los Angeles. In 1968, together with Helmut Schawinski and Michael Holzer, he founded Corp Himmelblau in Vienna as an alternative to the linear architectural thinking of the time. Now, I'm showing you a video of some of the early experimental work at the time, which is quite extraordinary. It's not so well known to the English-speaking world, but in Vienna, it's very clear that there was some very rich and provocative thinking that was going on that involved even characters such as Hans Hollein, and something that becomes the bedrock out of which this extraordinary experimental practice has evolved. You could perhaps see similarities or parallels with the work of Archigram in London, but this is distinctly Viennese, something I think that is quite extraordinary and quite unique. Wolf has also been, throughout his life, has been involved in education and academic life. He was a tenured professor at the University of Applied Arts, Angewandte as we know it, from 1990 to 2011, where he ran Studio Prix, and he serves as the chair of architecture and the Institute of Architecture and vice rector from 2003 to 2012. And during this time, he did an extraordinary contribution to education by bringing in people like Zaha Hadid, Greg Lynn, and so on, to make Angewandte one of the most stimulating architectural education environments in the world. He's also taught at places like the AA, MIT, Harvard, Columbia, UCLA, Yale, Penn, SCI-Arc, and so on. He has an honorary degrees from IOMINCO in Bucharest, and also from Universidad de Palermo in Buenos Aires, and he has an honorary diploma from the Architectural Association. I'm showing you here the Architecture Must Blaze installation, something that captivated me as a young academic some almost 30 years ago now, and I would show it to my students to try and inspire them alongside this extraordinary provocative manifesto. Let me just briefly read this, because this was something that was, to me, it was amazing. You can judge how bad the 70s were by looking at its uptight architecture. A democracy of opinion polls and complacency thrives behind Biedermeier facades. We have no desire to build Biedermeier, not now or no other time. We are tired of seeing Palladio and other historical masks, because with architecture, we don't want to exclude everything that is disquieting. We want architecture that has more, architecture that bleeds, that exhausts, that whirls and even breaks, architecture that lights up, stings, rips and tears under stress. Architecture has to be cavernous, fiery, smooth, hard, angular, brutal, round, delicate, colorful, obscene, lustful, dreamy, attracting, repelling, wet, dry and throbbing, alive or dead. If cold, then cold as a block of ice. If hot, then hot as a blazing wing. Architecture must blaze. Many of you, though, will be more familiar with his more recent work, where the Corp Himmelblau has been extraordinarily successful. This building in Shenzhen being one of the most iconic designs of the office. But it's fair to say that Wolf really came onto the scene with the Deconstructivist Architecture exhibition in MoMA in New York, Museum of Modern Art in New York, which we've been discussing with Peter Eisenman in one of our previous sessions. This really, I think, thrust Wolf into the limelight, and thereafter followed a series of extraordinary projects, both here in Europe, the European Bank in Frankfurt, in Lyon, and in France, this museum, and so on. And really, there has been I actually managed to get into this building to see this in the flesh. It was an astonishing rooftop conversion. And then this is a building in Los Angeles where I am based right now. So I, in many ways, have been inspired by Wolf from a kind of professional and academic perspective. And it's a great privilege, a great honor to be able to have him here today. As you can see, more recently, a lot of the work has been going on in Korea and in China, this one in Dalian, and so on. And I'm hoping that fairly soon there will be a building in Shanghai in China. I think I got pronounced the name of the city right, where Matthias Del Campo and I were on the judging panel, and we're very excited to see Wolf's contribution to that, an astonishing contribution. I remember very much the interview where they said, "Mr. Prix, don't you think your building's a bit expensive?" And I think his response was incredible. He said, "Well, if you build this building, you're going to have to extend your airport." And certainly that was the idea, that somehow it would become the new Bilbao. Then there's the building in Munich, the BMW headquarters, say Himmelblau. More recently, Wolf has been the recipient of a number of different awards, in particular the Digital Futures Project Award for this Deep Himmelbau project, an extraordinary state-of-the-art demonstration of what can be done with AI, with the support of Daniel Bolojan, one of our colleagues in Digital Futures. Daniel still works within the office, even though he's now currently an assistant professor in Florida Atlantic University in Fort Lauderdale. An extraordinary example of really what could happen out of that. And we're also very grateful for Wolf joining us for a session 2 years ago with Tom Main from Decon to AI. And of course, also last year, Wolf Prix was awarded the Arcadia Lifetime Achievement Award, along with a series of other distinguished awards. And I just want to mention two very important awards, the highest ones that Austria offers for cultural achievements, the Grand Austrian State Prize in 1999, and the Austrian Decoration for Science and Art in 2009. Of course, there are many other awards and many other publications, too many to mention here. So I would like to, then let me just simply say that, of course, in the recent issue of Architectural Design that Matthias Del Campo and I guest edited, we included this astonishing project, Deep Himmelblau, on the front cover. I would like to welcome Wolf. I have a series of questions I'd like to ask, especially about the early work, but maybe I could just kick off by asking Wolf to explain the name Corp Himmelblau, which is a particular and very precise meaning behind it. Welcome, Wolf.
Hi, Neil. Thanks for make this fabulous introduction, which could be a shortcut of a lecture. And I will take it and send it around the world if someone asks me to do a lecture now, because I like to make lectures, but only with the public, with a live public. I don't like to talk to the machine. I don't like, and now it's even worse than it was 1 year ago, because now I have to record the lecture with no people around, only talking to the screen, which makes me not so happy. Anyway, so talking to you is great. This is what I like to do. So I heard you forgot to mention my dearest friend, beside Saha and Tom. This is the friend of my right hand. This is Eric Owen Moss, which I have always a very, very fantastic discussion about the lines in Bob Dylan's songs, because that for instance, yeah, don't follow leaders, watch the parking meters and things like that, yeah? Because that is the expression of the theoretical expression or the metaphoric expression of the way we are thinking architecture, yeah? And when we started 1968, you know, we wanted to change architecture immediately and radical. So we said our role models were not SOM or KPF or all these names. We said we have to find a team name which is the philosophical expression of our attitude. Namely, we wanted to build buildings which are changeable like clouds. And when I see these AI movies, this is exactly what we wanted to do and I still want to do. I think it's a tough way, a long way to get there, but I'm sure that in the next decades, some of these buildings will be built, movable and changing like clouds. But since we didn't want to name ourselves cloud company or something like that, that's too easy. Yeah, it would be too easy, make it more complicated. And Helmut Struczynski and myself, we were sitting in the plane coming back from Spain after the diplomas, and we said, okay, now we want to be famous and rich like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. So I have to say, big mistake, big error. But I was sitting there on the window and I could see the deep blue sky. And in the middle of the sky, almost like hanging on the wing of the airplane, there was a cloud, changing the shape constantly. And that reminds me, I was thinking immediately on the Hamlet's the piece from Shakespeare, when Hamlet says, oh, look, it looks like a camel. And Polonius, I think, said, yes, my prince. And then, no, it changed to a crocodile. And the guy said, yes, my prince, again. And we had the hope when we will be in the profession that when I say to the client, oh, look, it changes the shape like a cloud, that the client will say, yes, my prince, like Polonius in the Hamlet things. All this was driven by the wish that we want to change architecture. And therefore we said, okay, Coop, Himmelblau, that cooperative Himmelblau. And in the first year, second year, we had the name was longer. We said building cooperation Himmelblau, because I always want to build. Maybe it comes from that my father was an architect, and I was, since I was a young guy, I was in the office and we were talking a lot about volumes, how to create volumes and the program in how organize a very efficient program in a volume. So this is where I started from. And then I had the big luck that I met on the Technical University in the studio of Karl Schwanzer, one of the most famous architects at this time in Austria and internationally. Fun that no one knows Karl Schwanzer right now, but this is losing the memory is driven by the what's the name of the lecture? Digital. Yeah, it's driven by the digital structures, because digital structures only go to the short time memories. So, but when we started, we said we want to change architecture radically and immediately. But where can we get the point where we can turn around the world? Yeah, like Archimedes said, give me the point, I will die Welt aus der Angeln heben, means turn around, skip the world. Yeah. And we thought that this only could be where we can find the most vulnerable point in the process of developing architecture. And then we thought that must be for sure one moment or two moments in the designing process. And so we tried to find out where is the point when where we could exclude all the regular codes and rules of architecture and the constraints of architecture. You know what I mean? The money, the wish of the client, the construction, the material. Put away these things and liberate space, because I still think we saw that 1968 at this time that architecture is prohibited by a lot, space is prohibited by a lot of constraints. So get rid of these constraints, then we can get a new language, introducing a new language which is much more influenced by other things than the codes and rules of architectural lecturers or architectural philosophy like geometry or all the other things which are, we denied that they are important in architecture. So we started to experiment with models, with drawings, basically drawings, then the model, and then destroying the model intentionally or not intentionally, so that other forms and shapes came up. And the Flammenflügel, the blazing wing, was a summary of all these ideas we had in our mind, namely how to build a burning structure in the middle of a high dense city, in the middle of the courtyard of the Technical University in Graz, and get a building permit for it. We got a building permit for it because we said we will cover the facade with a water curtain, and so that it's not dangerous and blah, blah, blah. And then we had the structure burning with liquid gas. And we started this event with loud with the music of the Stones. It was Sympathy for the Devil. And it was exactly the date where John Lennon was murdered, was shot down. The 8th of December, I forgot the name. So, but the flames as a driving formal tool you never know how it burns. Yeah, if you look at the flames, they burn in a very different stage, and so forth and so forth. So that we transported by burning PVC plates for models. So we came to this series of form mutations, we call. And so we made experiment getting rid of the normal geometry in the widest sense of the word. And since we were trained in drawing very intensely, this was a Viennese signature as well, that Pichler was the role model and Hans Hollein not so, but Pichler was the better Zeichner, drawer. So I said, okay, we got by chance the commission for a Viennese psychologist who lived in LA, and he found in an American small comic book from a gallery, Pratt, no, I don't remember the name of the gallery. So he called me up and said, do you want to build a house? I'm so fascinated by the procedure you developed. I'm a psychoanalyst and I know exactly what you are talking about. And Helmut and me, we were talking very long about this house, how it could be, but never think in spatial consequences, but just the atmosphere of the house, which maybe provokes a new lifestyle for this guy, because that is what he wants as well. And I remember exactly the day and also the smell of the studio. When I came in the morning to the studio, the sun was a little bit shiny. It was a very nice day. And in order not to be led astray by the drawing and my ability to draw, I closed my eyes and I was drawing not the house as a house, but the energetic system of lines. But I used my hand and the pen as a seismograph of this livable atmosphere I could feel immediately. So, and the next step was to build a small model of this. It was like a matchbox box, this size. And from there on, we developed every line to a buildable shell. This was the open house. We had the commission to do it, and in order to show the American building department that how this structure will be welded, we built one of these ribs one-to-one, and on the way to the United States, we did an exhibition on the AA. We put up this steel structure, and the ground plan was drawn with crayon on the asphalt of the place before the AA. Yeah. So, like always, happen things you never will wish that it happened. The client passed away, and the project was stopped. So I'm still thinking that this is what deconstructivist architecture really means. I'm not. I have to say that Peter is a great guy, Peter Eisenman, yeah. But we have the completely different approach to this so-called deconstructivism, because we think that Derrida is a student of Freud, and Freud is dealing with the unconscious. And all the other formal things, my American friends think this is deconstructivist to mingle up some shapes and forms. I think we have to go into subconscious methods, like I said, in order to liberate space. Not pressing in another geometry, but free space in the really third and fourth dimension. And we are working on that since then. And it ends up, it ends up with AI, which I think is not artificial intelligence, but architectural intelligence in our case. And Del Campo thinks the same way, I think. I have no idea, but this is what we are really following up right now. It takes a while to bring it to a real building. Just wait. It will come up.
Yeah. So just to clarify, I mean, I think, so you come from the city of Freud, from Vienna and so on. And so, as I understand, there were these deliberate techniques you were trying to develop to kind of get the unconscious to manifest itself.
Yes.
So, I mean, we actually, in with discussion with Peter Eisenman, he was kind of also keeping a certain distance from Derrida and saying it's got nothing to do with Derrida, what was going on. I think there was a lot of confusion about that deconstructivist exhibition as such. So, Wolf, there's one question. You always deny that you're a theorist. You always say I'm not a theorist, but actually you strike me as being probably the most theoretical architect I know, precisely because you deny it, because you don't want to get involved in a very superficial sort of way, engaging with things. But I do know that you're quite close to Peter Singer, who is a very established, have I got the name right, Austrian neuroscientist.
No, this is Wolf, not Peter.
Wolf.
He's German.
He's German. Okay.
Doesn't matter.
But how does, sorry, Wolf Singer, how does, apart from being friends with him, does his thinking in any way permeate your architectural viewpoint?
He wrote a book about brain and method. And this was very influential to me because he is talking, or was talking, is still talking about how our brain is working. And Wolfsinger says, at the beginning of every lecture, he shows two images. One is a photograph of the largest, biggest computer of the world. And next to this picture, a little fly. And he said, this machine would be happy if it could gain 100 million thousandths of the possibility the fly has in order to survive, brain, and we will wait. We have to wait for another decade or 100 years that we can catch out the function of our brain and use it for this artificial intelligence. This is one thing, and then we were talking, and he told me that our brain is working in both ways, hierarchically and basic democratic as well. It depends on the problem, how the synapses of our brain are mingled themselves together in order to solve the problem. Sometimes it's basic democratic, that all the synapses can work on this solution, and sometimes it's just authoritarian decision of one of something which is in our brain. And this is what I really like, because I can imagine that city planning would be much better if we would use this idea as a functional program for the process of a livable city. Yeah, so we are still in touch, and it was the connection was a little bit lowered down by the pandemic, because after a while no one wants to telephone anymore, and you know that.
The other thing, Wolf, but I mean, apart from trying to reignite, revitalize architectural practice, you were very much part of a mission to do the same to education, to architectural education, the whole Angewandte experiment, which kind of in many ways reinvented education. Would you like to say something about that? I mean, having Zaha, having Breglin, having Sanford and all those people there was an extraordinary moment in the history of education.
Yeah. First of all, I have to say that I'm coming from schools in Vienna, technical university, where the word review was not known. It was called correction, meaning the professor says what's right or wrong. So when I get the job on the university, and when I got to be the leader of the Institute of Architecture, I introduced the meaning of a review. Because when I started, and I said, I want to invite people, my friends, to come here, and I show the young students that the correction is not the right way, but in order to teach them how to discuss architecture on a higher level than just the question, where are the toilets? They say the school and the dean said, are you crazy? Whom do you want to invite? We are the best architects of the world, and you should be also a good architect. You should run the studio because we don't have money to pay for the foreign things. And it took me a while. First of all, I invited the people and said, please, I cannot pay a fee, but I invite you, and I paid it from my salary. The guys, and it was really great. And the students got really excited about the Miralles was there, and he said, designing means thinking, and Tom was there, and Eric was there, and and Lebius was there. It was very fruitful, and I'm very proud of that I really introduced the review system in Austria, and also in Switzerland, I think. I don't know exactly, but for sure in Austria. They started in all architecture school to invite people which are not from the school to get an overview. But what I wanted to teach is, I expressed it as a metaphor by quoting Saint-Exupéry, who said, if you want to build a ship, don't send the people in the woods to cut wood, but awake the desire for the great blue white sea. And this is what was my my teaching method. I said, if they ask me how to do it, I don't give recipes. You have to find it by yourself. Try to find it in books or wherever. If it's wrong, I will tell you. If it's right, I will not say any word, because it's yours. So this was my teaching system. And what I learned by Feuerstein in that, I forgot to say, the guy who really influenced me was Günther Feuerstein, a teacher on the Technical University, assistant of Karl Schwanzer, who passed away for a year ago, 95. He was a great teacher. And he always said, no model, no talk. And this is what I understood. And because architecture is a three-dimensional language and can only be spoken in 3 dimensions. And the 3 dimension doesn't mean to have a drawing in 3 dimensions. Perspective was, or, you know, things. But to build a model, articulate the space, the idea, the concept of the space which the model should show. And there's another word which I would like to mention. This is begreifen, to get a grip on it. That this is begreifen, but also to understand it. So both ways, the hand, the eyes, and the thinking come together in this word begreifen. You only can get a grip. You only can understand if you have a 3-dimensional model and look at that and correct it this way. So we using all these, let's say, modern tools in architecture now, but we always get back to the model because the synergy between head, body, hand, and theory and touching the things creates a new kind of intensity I want to build.
But one thing, Wilfried, I mean, I guess that's very much similar to the early culture of SciArc, and they were always building things then. And what I find interesting is the way in which you, for a while, there was an office in LA as well, that sort of relationship with Eric and with Tom Main in LA and the whole culture of LA, that somehow feeds into the office as well, it would seem.
Yeah. It influenced me. It showed me that I'm not alone building models. Yeah, because they were perfect model builders on SciArc. Tom is a perfect model builder. Yeah? Was a perfect guide to learn it, and Eric, how he transplanted his drawings into a model and so forth. I felt fine being together with my friends there.
There's a slight difference between, I mean, there's a big difference in many ways. Even though your work is quite similar with Tom Main, I sense there's a very Austrian sensibility that Tom doesn't quite have.
Yeah. I just wrote an article about his drawings and models. Tom wants to control everything. And he's a little bit afraid of that some of the drawings or models get out of control. But I'm looking for the things which were out of control in order to develop that. It's like the black point on the wing of a butterfly. It doesn't came up by calculation. It was by chance. This is a very important thing, by chance. And then the evolution showed whether this is worth to be developed or it goes under. So that happens to my project sometimes.
Maybe I could ask you about your current projects. I mean, you make the comment that architecture is on shaky grounds right now, and I'm intrigued to just hear more about why you think we're on shaky ground. and then particularly where the office is at the moment in terms of production, because it is a difficult time for sure. Why do you say shaky ground?
Yeah, everything in our world now is uncertain nowadays. Yeah, we are standing on a wobbling surface. Yeah, what should we do? Where is war and peace? This, yeah, all these things. Yeah, who has the truth? No one knows. People are thinking about that, and they're lying and they're faking. Messages are going around. Students don't know what they should do. They don't know. We are on a shaking ground. What I think schools should do, what they should do now, let young people invent and develop exceptional, stupid, or crazy, or straightforward things. Because imagine a block of material we call a speak, yeah? It's wobbling, yeah? It's not safe, yeah? If you are touching it, it goes away and things like that. The old structures are going down, but they are not dead yet. And this war in Europe, and the war in Saudi Arabia, and wherever the war is, I see it that way, it's the last energy output of a dying system. The new structures and the new system is coming up, but it's not born yet. And if the young people want to influence the new structures, they have to try it by invent crazy and utopian and whatever things. I don't judge that, but try to invent new, unthinkable realities. Because if we don't do that, the old structures will be reborn again. I'm a little bit afraid that that could happen. But the schools are the point, the outposts where they can send images to the new structures, and maybe we can change the world again. That sounds very optimistic, because everyone says, if I tell you the truth, and if I'm in bad mood because 80% of population is 100% stupid. If I say that, people say, especially my American friends say, you are so pessimistic. You have to be very optimistic. So I said that if the young people can do that in the schools, and they are forced to do that, then maybe we can change it another time again. Like we tried in '68, we were not successful. Like we never rich and famous like the Rolling Stones. What we think we will get.
Well, I would say that the shaky ground for you is probably a good thing. If you're maybe Tom and you want to be in control of things, there are opportunities that arise with shaky ground, right? I mean, there is a new potential, new paradigm emerging, no?
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
Trying the AE's AI.
Yeah, maybe I should I want to pick up on that question of AI, because you've been such a kind of pioneer with Daniel, who I think is an amazing resource. I'm a big fan of Daniel, so it's great to see what you've been doing. But you're also a little bit cautious about AI. You make the comment that the AI should be in the back seat and we architects should be in the front seat. Does that worry you in some way, that what AI can do?
Not for us and not for the talented architects. But I'm afraid if we develop that to a certain kind of producing reality, yeah, then the big offices and the battleships will take over, and the talented architects will be behind because they don't have the money to store the whole diagrams in a computer or something like that. Like the PIM, yeah? Like the PIM is in the hand of big building offices. Now, because we are too poor to get the stuff to develop that.
But what's appearing, it seems, and there's some new techniques like Midjourney has appeared in the last 2 or 3 weeks. Incredible stuff that's coming out, and it's almost like we could be eclipsed by AI. Is there a dark side to AI where we could take over? We could lose our jobs, do you think?
Like in all digital tribes. Yeah, I remember exactly when I was sitting with 2 of my students on the beach, and they say, you know, this is the most democratic thing you can imagine. That the whatever, yeah, the information is for free and everything. But fake news are overcoming the intelligent democratic way of living. Yeah. So, Dark Side of the Moon is a beautiful record of the Pink Floyd. Yeah. And as maybe you remember when I said we hope that we have finished the Qingdai Museum there, yeah, then before the Chinese are landing on the dark side of the moon.
Well, just quickly, what is the situation with the Shanghai Museum? It was such a great design.
Yeah. Politics. If politics are taking over, then you have to count, let's say, 10, 15 years for the project. You know, when I came back from Italy last week, we had a project there. I will be very interested in this project. Namely, it's a science center with apartments and built in a quarry. Everyone was excited. I was there. I saw all the people around. And when I was flying back home, I was thinking by myself, hey, if I would be 40 years younger, I would come home and say, let's start it. This is the greatest. Let's do it. We will. I was sitting there and thinking, okay, now I know it will take at least 15 years.
Well, let's hope it happens. Maybe just in terms of timing, I'm just thinking what your practice at 68 was such an incredible moment of revolution in Europe. I mean, May 68. Sorry?
Not only in Europe.
Yes, California, flower power, and so absolutely, and the Beatles and whatever. So so out of that, of course, came a lot of this kind of watershed philosophy for the deconstruction. Anyway, I could see there's almost like a continuous thing from 68, May 68, to the decon thing to AI. Do you see there's a kind of a parallel between what happened in decon and what's now happening in AI?
There is the guy, the famous physiker, Zeilinger, quantum, I don't know how you pronounce it, quantum theory, yeah? He said, he said, we have to develop, we means he and his students, 100 ideas. Maybe one of that will be successful. The same right now. Therefore, the people are so insecure. There is no, what is architecture? I say yes, and you guys in the United States have a lot of theories what architecture is. I like to hear that. If it's not too long, then I appreciate that, the theories. But if it comes to the point that someone says, if I read the plan, that's enough. I know exactly how the building is. And this guy forgets that architecture is in the three-dimensional. So this is the danger, the black side of the theory. If it goes too far in theory.
You know, I don't know. I'm a big fan of theory, but I think we've changed.
I know.
No, we've changed from the Freud and the Derrida into neuroscience, and I really think that's the domain we need to explore. That's why I'm interested in your work. I saw some work on a swarm city some time ago, where you were comparing the city to a brain, which is very influential for me.
Yeah. So, but look, this was always looking over the edge of the plate, meaning over the edge of the plate of architecture. We always said that the space experience, the helmets, the suits, the racing cars, the boxing method of Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali. This is what or the movies. What can we learn from that and translate it into architectural bits and pieces, so to say, structures? Or, you know, I was so excited about Barcelona when the trainer, not Guru de la Jara, but the trainer of Barcelona at this time, he introduced moves from other play systems into football, yeah, basketball, strategic moves, ice hockey, and so forth. And we said, okay, this is it. Yeah, to invent new systems, you have to not stay on this block-headed codes and rules.
So this is a question I wanted to ask you in the beginning, actually. Do you see a direct connection between what you were doing, the crazy helmet stuff, which is amazing, and what you're doing now? I mean, I never understood the helmet stuff, but it looks fantastic. Maybe you could explain what the helmets are about, and then say whether that thinking still is then your work today.
At this time, we were very interested in feedback systems. That means, therefore, we build balloons where you can see and hear your heartbeat and things like that. So, or the face motions. The helmet was the extension of information. We always said, if you are sitting before the television, you only see an image. So for our diploma, we built the helmet where we projected on the helmet a movie, 2 movies. We built a vest, and the helmet was audiovisual and smell. And the vest was touching your body on certain zones. So we had a pornographic movie and a car crash. And the professor was sitting there, and first we showed him the pornographic movie. He could smell the parfum, he could hear that, and the vest was going like that, as touching his body. And then we changed the whole adjustment, and he could see the car crash. He could smell blood because we put blood conserve and blow it in the helmet. And the vest was pressing his hips, hips, yeah. So that's it's like in judo. It's a very it hurts. But he was a little bit, let's say, a little bit overweight. So the vest goes bang, it exploded. But he was really excited. So maybe because of the pornographic movie, I don't know. So we passed.
So
this is said intentionally, because we said this is so cold. Information now is so cold. You see a war, the American war in Vietnam, but no blood. You can see the blood, but you have to smell it, and you have to get body to the body. Because if you cut off the body from your head, what sometimes the theory is like that, then you are dead. Or I say it's like telephone sex. Something is missing.
So just go back to that, the first video with the explosions. What was that? The 2CV, you come roaring in, there are the explosions. Was that part of that same kind of idea?
Yeah. Heartbeat creates vanishing space. Yeah. Loud, it goes boom. And you can see the explosion of the field, and it's creating space out of sand. And there is the contradiction is the soft space, it's foam. In 1 minute, 10,000 cubic meter covers the whole streets and cars and all the things. Yeah. The police was not so amused.
So this is really a super interesting discussion, Wolf. I'm one of the key things we want to ask our guests is really what advice what advice do you have for the students of today? Because it is really a very uncertain time. What would you say to the students of today?
Since I say, what is architecture? Yes, the answer is yes. I would say, stay cool and carry on.
And what about the practitioners of today? I mean, the architects of today.
Yeah, but this is another story, how to get the students who are more concerned in, there are two things, yeah? One part is concerned in creating on the screen forms. Yeah, form in German, it means form, yeah? Form. And we say they are baking Förmchen, like cakes on the computer, and say this is whatever they want. Yeah, and the other major thing is nowadays moral instead of architecture, and clay instead of future. So forget these two things. Try to invent new things. Try it out and stay cool and carry on and don't worry. And go to good offices which know how to build and what north means. North. Yeah, a famous, very famous architectural office presented a competition, their competition contribution in Australia. And this was an open discussion, and they said, our project is the best because all our apartments looking toward south. And I said, great, you are really far beyond the future because building apartments looking to south is in Australia good because this is north in our areas. But when I say, when we get a commission to do houses, and I say only north apartments we will build, they say you will not be able to sell it, and this is no. It's a no-no. But I say, okay, if you do it in south, you can. Your house will be Kentucky Fried Chicken area when the resources are going out. because south is killing you nowadays. Looking south, the sun is shining and raises the temperature. In my living 20 years in my apartment, penthouse upstairs, it's terrible how the temperature, the normal temperature increased.
Maybe just one final question. I was just intrigued by, I mean, your embracing of AI is an inspiration to a lot of people, because I think it's great that you're exploring these things. But maybe I'm just wondering, because in some senses, all the unconscious processes you were talking about, the Freudian processes, when you've got a computer dictating things in advance, there's a kind of, you've got to obey it in some ways. Does that go against your original idea of freedom when it's controlled in that way, or?
What I say why I'm doing AI is, we will get a commission. Let's say an opera house. We have a lot of plans and resources, what we investigated. We will get the commission, we look at it, because every site is different, how the commission could be placed. Then we will give the program to Franz. Franz is the co-worker for AI. And then the whole office goes for 1 month to the Seychelles on the beach. Yeah. We have a palapa maybe, and one computer controlling whether Franz is working or not, and putting all our knowledge together. Then we come back, and Franz had done a model and plans. And we say, okay, the model, we make it a little bit different, and the plans are okay. Then we give it to Anneliese, which is the woman who is in charge of building the three-dimensional plans, the BIM for this model. Again, going for, in this case, 2 months, maybe to the Maldives or to Cuba, as I mean. The whole office sitting there, controlling on the beach with a computer what they are doing, and then we're coming back, or maybe only me. I look at it, sign it, and with the invoice, we send it to the client, and then I'm going back maybe for a diving or a sailing journey. This is what I'm dreaming, that the AI, artificial intelligence, will help me to get not only to free the space, because in our AI, all the experience, how we did to liberate space, this is done, and I'm liberated then. This is what I think will help me to liberate space and myself.
Well, this has been absolutely amazing. Such inspiring words. I mean, you show by example, both to practitioners what can be done, to educators what can be done by what you've done at Ankavanta. And I think also what is, I think, incredible is the energy that you have, the energy that you still have. I remember, Gentai, when you appeared, bounced onto the scene, and it's amazing to see that. I hope that when I'm at your age, I have that energy, because it's very inspiring. So I just want to thank you for this. I want to thank you for your contributions, also Digital Futures over the years. And you are a role model for many of us. We look to you because of the educational inventions, or the way of reinventing education. That's what we're trying to do in Digital Futures, to try and give education a good kick up the backside. And I think that there's so much there. There's so much that needs to be done. So I just like to thank you, Wolf. We're going to translate this into 12 different languages and spread it around the world. Thank you so much. And congratulations on the Digital Futures Award of last year, and Academy Award and so on, because what you're doing is really, it's fantastic, amazing.
Neil, I thank you so much. It's always good to talk to you, I have to say, because you're so inspiring. You turn me on like a kind of electromotor. Yeah. So I'm running, still running. Thank you very much.
Thanks. You're the inspiration for us. So thank you very much indeed. So thank you all. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Like this. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thanks. Paveline?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Maybe we
Okay.
can